Welcome, I'm John Glanville, and this is video 44 in my Calmness in Mind series, where we explore common sense solutions for your calmer life. Now, I've called this video Using Common Sense as an Antidote to Procrastination. Because whether you call it procrastination, distraction, self-sabotage, or not knowing what you want, or whether you call it a lack of motivation, skills, or knowledge, the irony is, even though you might not know what to do, face facts. You've unconsciously decided to do nothing, or are knowingly or unknowingly doing something that distracts you from engaging with a richer life, like laying in bed or staring at a screen all day, or being in a job that you dislike. And common sense indicates this to be true, because unless you were feeling some inner desire to take action or to change something, you wouldn't feel bad about procrastinating, would you? Right? And if you say, well, others are guilting me into feeling bad about my inaction, then I would suggest that you realize you may have abdicated the power of authority of your life to that person, rather than just owning and accepting your choice to squander this rarest opportunity to be here in a body, here in Earth School, where you, the observer, the immortal and formless rider of the horse, are in the perfect environment to practice learning detachment from pain and detachment from discomfort on the road to discovering how to love yourself and how to operate in your own best interest and how to actualize your innate creativity, as I discussed in video 2, part 1. And even if that's not true, might that be a good story you might temporarily use to placebo your own unconscious mind into believing, so that it will take action now and is not procrastinating until you find a truth that you are more comfortable with? There are a couple of quotes on procrastination that I like. And the first one is, remember, it's more mentally tiring to think about what has to be done and all the things that might go wrong than it is to physically do the job. And I found that to be usually true. And secondly, until you value yourself, you won't value your time. And until you value your time, you'll not do anything with it. As I've said before, time is one of life's most precious commodities. Yeah? And have you fully embraced the concept that what you do with your time will be the expression of your life? So if you're wasting time, or your procrastination is hiding under other labels, such as fear, or not knowing what you want, or distractions like working too hard in the wrong job, or researching rather than doing, or having a low self-worth story which tries to talk you out of taking action, then I think this might be the video for you, although you probably don't want to hear it. I want to encourage you, not by being friendly and supportive, but with some tough love, by urging you to make yourself honestly accountable for where you are right now and who you would like to become. It's my experience that about 70% of people who say they wish to be free from anxiety tend to sabotage their own recovery by unknowingly playing the game of life in ways that just don't pass the common sense test. One of my early mentors knew this, and he told me about becoming a therapist. He said to me, John, do it because you desire to do it, not because you want to change people. He went on to say, make your success, or your measure of success, your continued growth and your continued happiness, not theirs. Because people will only change when they're ready to change. And he said to me, it's shocking how much crap some humans will tolerate before they wake up to the fact that they don't need to be horrible to themselves. And everything they wish is available to some degree if they were only to begin behaving and thinking in new ways and in different ways thus changing their perceived notion of what reality is and what they can do with it. He said, show them what's possible, and then the rest is up to them. So this video is for you to ask yourself, how am I doing? What is it I truly desire? And where might I be knowingly or unknowingly sabotaging my own experience of life? Now, to start this off, I would like to share with you some research by Dr. Donald Hoffman. He's a professor of cognitive science at the University of California, and he wrote the book, The Case Against Reality: How Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. And it's a really interesting book. And he offers a theory that organisms which see reality as it is cannot outcompete organisms of equal complexity who, instead of exploring or analyzing what reality might be, focus on chasing fitness payoffs. And by fitness payoffs, he means their behaviors focus on the actions required to survive, to reproduce, and to thrive. Perhaps another way of saying that is, those who think but don't do will always be less effective than those who do and then think. Because one path remains in the inner virtual world of the head, whilst the other makes something happen in the external world of matter, which is far more tangible and creates the opportunity for a chain reaction of different outcomes. Therefore, common sense says, if you're wasting your perceptual energy on pondering the truth, trying to figure out why things happen, or distracting yourself from life with social media, TV, or computer games, then basically, and evolutionarily speaking, you are wasting your time and you are wasting your energy. Because those things won't assist you in staying alive, getting money, expanding your physical usefulness, or helping you to prosper. Therefore, you won't be able to outcompete those who only spend their time looking for and acting upon those payoff points which assist them to thrive and win. Like in a video game, if some guy is just looking around and enjoying the game and trying to figure it all out, how it all works, and researching everything, he's going to lose to some other individual who's just focused on the fitness payoffs, or you might say getting all the points and moving to the next level. So though it feels intelligent to research and analyze and learn, if you're not taking action and accessing these fitness payoffs, you'll ultimately fail no matter how clever you are. Because you're not playing a common sense game of life, you're playing the programmed duality trap game of life by seemingly doing what's right. However, is it the right thing for you? And this trap will cause you to doubt yourself, further fueling procrastination. And as we know, doubt is behind all anxiety, all OCD, depression, and most self-worth issues. And as I keep saying, optimism, trust, and taking action in line with a clear intention to just see what will happen, and then to adjust your next action to suit the first outcome, but still in line with your intentions, is a common sense and effective way to play the game of life. But we were never taught that strategy in school. It's my belief that most people's anxiety and depression arise as the natural result of poor lifestyle choices, of past trauma, of exhaustion, maladapted mindset programs, boredom, loneliness, stress, untapped creativity, repressed anger from childhood, and from being a too nice person, which I mean by putting everybody else's needs before your own. And it's my belief that most people experiencing mental health issues are actually feeling how they should feel, given how they are worrying and behaving or not behaving. They're trying to be thinking creatures who control their emotions, rather than nature's original design of being a creative and emotional creature who subsequently learned how to think. Creativity is not about thinking. It is about expressing what you are thinking through doing, or simply doing what emotionally you desire to do without thinking. Now, from this new perspective, we may view our mental health as malleable, adaptable, and natural, rather than an unfortunate genetic occurrence. However, a person with complex anxiety might focus on or even fight for their own limitations, rather than reorientating their awareness to what they can do now, and to embrace the discomfort of not knowing what might happen. But at least something will happen, okay? And something happening is the opposite of procrastination. Plus, by repeatedly ERPing themselves, by repeatedly placeboing themselves, hypnotizing themselves, and setting clear new intentions, they will automatically transition from a victim procrastination mindset to a change and action-based mindset, which is surprisingly an easy and powerful way to live your life. You just take what action is right for you in each moment, in line with your intentions, and you let go of the need to control the outcome of those actions. It's really quite simple. And Dr. Hoffman proposes that our brain and our senses are the GUI, our graphical user interface between our awareness and reality. Thus, whether we choose to just accept the original programming of our interface, or if we decide to update and optimize it, that choice will powerfully determine our effectiveness and our happiness within that life. I hope this is making sense. Many people say to me, the problem is, John, I just don't know what I want. Now I can understand that. It's not easy. But you're going to need to start somewhere. So why not start with these fitness payoffs? How might you maximize your health? How may you optimize your living environment? How can you start working on your self-love, your courage, your sources of income? How can you expand your social life for more connection, more support, more fun? And even if you don't know what you do want from life, you can decide who you would like to be regardless of what you do with your life. And if you can choose who you would like to be, then you can start immediately thinking and behaving as that person would. Now, videos 32, parts 1 and 2, they assist you in asking the right questions and helping you to document what's important to you and creating a list of intentions that may be appropriate for this phase of your life. And what I'm saying to you is, have you completed that document yet? Okay? If not, why not? And the reason why is this stuff works, but it only works if you do it. And know this, if you're waiting for motivation to come before taking action, this is just a procrastination trap, because motivation arises as an after effect of taking action and feeling that you're doing something worthwhile. And if you're waiting until you have more energy before taking action, this is another procrastination trap. You are where you are, and it's from exhaustion that you'll need to begin this journey up into the higher, more optimistic energy attractor fields, where you'll then be able to access nature's higher energetic states, as I discuss in video 37. And perhaps rather than doubting me, why don't you trust what I'm saying and then just go and test it out for yourself? So much procrastination stems from doubt, and doubt often stems from conflict. So a sensible concept to revisit is the concept of duality, which I first mentioned in video 34. Have you watched that video yet? Where from childhood we were conditioned to see the world from the mind's duality of what's right or wrong, good or bad, loving or hating, legal or illegal, possible or impossible. And we were taught through our domestication and schooling to see one of the pairs as right and the opposing pair as wrong. But what I want you to consider is this is simply a language trap. And duality is not necessarily a common sense perspective to live your life from. Let me give you an example of reversing that program and moving to a more common sense non-duality, meaning no conflict, mindset. Might be to decide to just befriend laziness, befriend procrastination, befriend hedonism. And thus you remove this duality conflict. Stop demonizing it. If you like doing it, why don't you enjoy doing it? Okay, it can be quite simple, really. Or, as I proposed in video 16, perhaps you could allow the more selfish, nomadic side of you out to play more. And I think a good question to ask yourself is, am I playful? Am I a playful person? Do you actually know how to be playful? Or are others around you restricting your natural playfulness? Or are you all stuffy and serious? And I say this because everybody is born playful. Like every puppy is born playful, every kitten is born playful. And if it isn't there, then you weren't given the chance to develop it during your childhood, or people trained it out of you with the story that life is serious and you must be more serious, and you've got to behave in certain ways. Now, playfulness seems to be part of our nomadic nature, and it doesn't like taking responsibility for making decisions, and it doesn't like taking responsibilities for acting on things. It just wants to feel good in this moment, or have something distract it from its own noisy imagination, which if not used creatively will run amok inside their heads. So I think playfulness, cheekiness and spontaneity are some of the best forms of ERP, exposure and response prevention therapy, known to man. And it's never too late to learn how to be more playful. Children unknowingly know that role play, feedback loops, pretending, asking questions, using their imagination, trying new things, laughing at themselves, having a dream, expressing their emotions, are the natural manifestation of the remarkable animal that we are. Our first 7 years were ERP in action. It was human nature in action. It was magical and very effective, okay? If we were granted the freedom to be able to play. But from the age of 7, this natural concept was interrupted by the man-made schooling process, which did its best to program us towards being sensible, rules-based and right, which obviously clashed fundamentally with our natural state of being creative, free and happy. And as I keep saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be controlled or do you want to make your own choices? Now, when that nomadic side of our nature is in the procrastination driving seat, the settler aspect will be upset and feel guilty about what everybody else is thinking. And it's likely your warrior aspect will feel angry and frustrated as he can't see any clear path forward and he likes taking action. So from this perspective, it's easy to see the tug of war that duality causes, flipping you between these opposing views that take you nowhere, okay, yet emotionally exhaust you. But there's nothing wrong with choosing a path of inactivity. Some people sit in caves meditating for years, others go surfing or lounge around. This is your life and you can live it any way you wish. Yeah? Or you can choose the path of choosing to be active and enjoy living that way, okay? And though it may be more difficult, it's usually very rewarding and it certainly gives life more meaning. Personally, I try to consciously alternate between the two options as I wish, but only one at a time. If I choose to be lazy, that's fine. And when I choose to be active, that's fine too. I don't beat myself up, okay? And I don't worry what others think, thus avoiding these duality conflicts. Now, where I still struggle, but I have to say I'm working really hard on this, is to accept that the external world will always be out of my control, with all these various entities vying for my attention, my money, and my energy. And that will always be there. And though I can't control it, I can learn to ignore it. And it took me quite a while to untrain my brain from its draconian schoolroom indoctrination that X is right and Y is wrong, and that rules must be followed, and that I should trust science, and that governments, banks and authority provided security and were always acting in my best interest. Now, that was quite a challenge, reeling in my own conditioned external locus of control to become more internal as I developed new strategies for my self-governance and self-responsibility for my life as best I could. I think these days I've mastered the ability to placebo, or to trick my unconscious brain into running the very optimistic stories that I wish it to offer back to my conscious mind. Whereas my unconscious mind used to talk me out of taking action or challenging life, it now talks me into taking action. It talks me into challenging life. It talks me into pushing the buttons just to see what will happen. It dares me to try new things, okay? And it positively affirms my actions, and it just smiles when I mess up and just says, yeah, well, that's another lesson in learning. Now, it took a while, but the effort was certainly worth it to retrain it. And video 43 details that very powerful process. And it's so much more powerful than anybody can believe it possibly could be. Now, there were 3 techniques that helped me enormously, okay, as I was making these changes. Firstly, outside of my work, I stopped giving anybody any advice or feedback on how they should live their lives unless they asked me directly. Because their life was not my responsibility, okay? It was my life that was my responsibility, so I focused on making my life as I wished it to be. Secondly, although I played lip service to authority, I learned how to become braver and to do what was right for me, not them. I stopped listening to mainstream media news and government rhetoric, and I endeavored to arrange my life in ways where I might be more self-responsible and self-sufficient. And then finally, I observed my day in terms of energy. How much energy did I have? Where was it going? How could I get more energy? Was I using more energy than was biologically sensible? Was I using my energy wisely on my intentions? Or was I squandering my energy or having it leached out of me by others, or listening to my mind distract me, bugging me for more reassurance, knowledge, accreditation, experience, money, resources, or whatever its story was that day? And therefore, I think learning how to be non-dual is a powerful tool which neutralizes stress. And I think stress may be defined as the difference between what is happening in the outer world and what our brain in the inner world wants to be happening. And common sense says it's much easier to change the story in your head than to change the outside world. Though ironically, as you change within, the world without often looks very, very different. Now, I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just sharing the techniques that worked for me, okay, what worked for me that I experimented with and the results I got. I mean what I'm about to say very lovingly, but the stupidity of the human condition used to make me so angry and it used to frustrate me. But these days, it just makes me laugh. I can now see that people are just doing what they were programmed to do, the way they were programmed to do it. And their awareness of how self-aware they are will dictate how much inner conflict they experience. That's a bit complicated. There must be a better way of explaining that. A dumb man who's aware that he's dumb and can laugh at his own folly remains out of internal conflict. And if he can love himself for all the other strengths he possesses or has developed, and if he is confident in his abilities to which they pertain, I would say is an intelligent and appealing man. But a dumb man who berates himself for being dumb and stays at home because he thinks he's dumb and doesn't try to learn anything because he's dumb and ties himself in anxiety knots because he's dumb is being dumb. and therefore will be less appealing to others, and his experience of life will reflect that. And the difference between the two cases is self-worth, self-acceptance, and self-awareness, all of which can be developed through learning how to be nice to yourself, retraining your brain, and interfacing with life more sensibly. So, as we explore how to stop procrastinating or wasting our time and wasting our energy on non-fitness payoffs, two questions arise that I think need answering. Initially, are we becoming accountable to ourselves for what we want from life and who we wish to become? And secondly, where are we knowingly or unknowingly self-sabotaging our progress in that direction? So I would like to say to you, have you taken full accountability for watching all the videos, for reading all the books, and for deciding who you wish to become? Have you started speaking your new authentic truth? And by treating yourself with respect, have you courageously retrained those around you to treat you more respectfully too? And can you recognize and can you stop any self-sabotaging behaviors like not getting quality sleep, distracting yourself with social media, remaining stuck in OCD compulsion loops, not learning new things, or letting other people control your life? Now, these are life-changing perspectives. And I'm just asking you to ask yourself, where are you on this journey? Now, another place where procrastination is often concealed is beneath feelings of low self-esteem or low self-worth. I see it all the time when people stay in the same job for many years because they feel safe with what they know, and they doubt their ability to learn new things and are often afraid to attend interviews or to ask for more money. They silently suppress their anger as everybody else gets pay rises and promotions, or they move off and do new jobs. Then rather than asking themselves, what are they doing that works and how can I copy their behaviors? They say, what's wrong with me? Why don't I get the breaks they get? Why am I being taken for granted? And what I have to tell you is, yes, you will be taken for granted, as it was you who trained them to treat you like that by silently and diligently doing as you were told, and then working harder and harder to try and get their respect, when it was your own lack of self-respect that allowed them to treat you that way in the first place. And this is uncomfortable, but it's true. Do you remember back in video 22 when I introduced you to virtual reality stories, where I said that it's how we interact with others that sets up a virtual reality story in their brain of who we are and how we like to be treated. And then that program just unconsciously runs in their head and will be the way they treat us without them even realizing. If they say to you, is everything fine, and you lie by saying yes, then their virtual reality story of you will be that you are fine. Even if silently in your head you're angry, right? But it's only you who hears those words and turns them into great big emotional dramas, not the other person. So many people fail to recognize that self-worth has nothing to do with anybody else. It starts and ends with ourselves. It's your behaviors that define how others will treat you. And all I'm saying to you is, do you have a plan to retrain their virtual reality stories of you that you inadvertently installed in them, to one that's more appropriate to the new you that you wish to become? I'm told that most people allow others to treat them only as badly as they treat themselves. And why would you treat yourself badly? That just doesn't pass any common sense test. Now, it's not easy to change, as these programs, they run really deep, but they can be changed. And deciding to be nice to yourself, okay, by just being honest with everybody, including yourself, is the first step. You stop looking for external validation and start lovingly being nice to yourself by stopping being horrible to yourself. You wouldn't be horrible to your children or your pets. Why would you be horrible to yourself? Now, another great tool to end procrastination is to become more gently dominant and to use that power constructively to begin truthfully saying what you mean and asking for what you want in every moment. And I'll tell you why. It's because the world seems to offer more opportunities to those individuals who are prepared to try new things, yeah? Who don't take things personally, who grab opportunities, who ask for what they want, who make the effort to be social, more optimistic and more playful. This is just how nature works. So how can you begin to think and behave in these more natural ways? And I'd like you to not use having the right education or qualifications as an excuse. If you haven't got the right education or qualifications, go and get them, okay? Or realize that you only need them if you wish to work for large rule-based and red tape corporations like government, hospitals, civil service, or local councils. Because if you start your own company, you often don't need any qualifications. And many startup companies or forward-thinking organizations don't care about stupid university degrees because they want a person with the right attitude or an optimistic mindset or the confidence to be able to think on their feet, yeah? Or to be able to develop to suit the conditions that arise in that role. So what I'm trying to say to you is, don't let your inner stories of lack talk you out of taking action. I'm asking you to become braver, to ask for what you want, and to find ways of becoming the type of person who adds value to themselves and adds values to the life around them. It's easier than you might imagine. Now, another common sense realization that took me until I was 40 to learn was the simple fact that happiness is a choice. It's the decision to choose to be happy. It's the ability to let go, to forgive, to see the bright side of something, to smile, to be optimistic, to encourage others rather than to criticize them. And happiness is just the ability to accept what is. And I'm asking you, yeah, can you make the dream inside your head more beautiful regardless of what's happening in that external outer world? Now this is a really powerful skill to learn. Think about it. Okay? How is it that other people living in the same world as you are happy? How come they're not anxious? And how might you copy what they do? This might mean that you go to the happiest person that you know and you ask them, how do you see the world? Ask them how they talk to themselves. Ask them how they maintain optimism. And I think it will really surprise you how simply they look at life, which may reveal to you how unnecessarily hard and difficult you might be making your own life. Do you remember back in video 10 where I said that the only reality is what's happening right now? And you can either accept it, or you can change it, or you can move away from it. And I'd like to ask you, how are you getting on with mastering those three options? And they work for procrastination too. Are you accepting your procrastination? Are you changing your procrastination? Or are you moving away from that which you are using to distract yourself, which is procrastination? Now, because this is a duff you up, tough love video, I want to challenge you to ask yourself if your food diet is conducive to the changes you wish to see within yourself. How's your weight? How's your fitness? How are your energy levels? And I would suggest cutting out all sugars and limiting carbohydrates for at least 90 days. And you will be shocked how this will increase your energy levels. It will reduce your anxiety. It will sharpen your brain and take that fogginess away, okay? And certainly, if you need it, it will help in weight loss. Personally, I like the ketogenic and the carnivore diets, especially for those who have chronic fatigue, brain fog, diabetes, or any neurological issues. But I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm just saying, try new stuff. Can you take some common sense actions to explore what your body might need, not what your mind thinks your body needs? Okay then. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I weren't asking you how you were getting on with becoming an ERP specialist and using every old fear as a chance to retrain your mind and your body to accept and normalize those old fearful responses into calmer reactions. Can you adopt a mindset that says, I will always walk towards my intentions, not away from my fears? Fears are just emotions. Thoughts are just stories, but an action towards an intention with a positive outcome pictured in mind and a feeling that it already happened in your heart, then regardless of that outcome, you have movement in your life. And there is nothing more powerful than a person with a dream and an intention. This is ERP in action. And each day it gets easier and easier as you learn that the outcome is not under your control, but taking action is. And it's actually ridiculously easy, but nobody ever taught you this. And has it dawned on you yet the magnitude of the fact that anybody who's ever done anything new always started from the positionality of never having done it before and not knowing how to do it? They stepped into their discomfort, they felt a bit silly and allowed those emotions to come up. They kept their focus on their learning a new thing rather than worrying about what others thought of them. And they repeatedly practiced until they got better. And then they mastered that skill. And then it made them feel good about themselves. Exposure and response prevention therapy, ERP, is the secret to becoming a calm and well-rounded person who can engage with life no matter what situation arises. But there's always a lot of resistance to ERP. And it's my experience that 3 patterns emerge amongst the generally anxious or depressed population. The first third of them see immediately that ERP is just a process. They suck it up and they apply it. And usually, if they do it right, and if they do it often, and if they do it well, they become amazed at how quickly their life changes as they become comfortable with discomfort and comfortable with not knowing what might happen next. Now, the second group, they kind of get it and they kind of apply it, but very half-heartedly. And they keep forgetting to apply the techniques or failing to repeat them. So they don't actually form these new habits, and they might get some changes, but it's a mixed bag of results. And then the final group are those who just refuse to try it, as they are just too scared, or they don't believe that it works, or whose anxiety or OCD is hijacking them by unconsciously sabotaging all attempts to run any ERP routines. Now, if this is you, and probably you're not watching this video, but if you do get to this point and you watch this video, my advice is this: embrace it and try harder, or hire a specialist to help you to do it. Don't let past experiences with bad therapists put you off working with a new one who knows what they are doing. Or just accept that you've chosen to remain with your anxiety rather than address your fears, and live your life accordingly until such a time that you can wake up to the fact that ERP done well changes your life. ERP is your friend. And if after all I've said about ERP, placebo, self-hypnosis, positive self-talk in the last 43 videos, okay, if you still don't believe me, or if you still refuse to do ERP, let me throw some more common sense at this problem. And I will explain this by discussing one of the more difficult phobias a therapist can treat. One of the hardest ones is emetophobia, which is the fear of vomiting. And this phobia is very common and interestingly occurs predominantly in dominant individuals who for some reason had their naturally dominant personality repressed during childhood by certain events or other controlling parents or caregivers. And often there's a past trauma based in disgust or shame, which may or may not be consciously remembered. The person often has an overwhelming fear of vomiting or catching some bug that will make them or other people sick, which is completely overwhelming and causes them to avoid anything or anybody who may trigger that fear. Perhaps they won't drink too much alcohol in case they get sick, or they hate to collect children from school if there are bugs circulating and some kids might get ill. And often that leads to an excessive need for hygiene or a fear of contamination. To them, these irrational behaviors become their normal. But to others, it's not normal. It's a nuisance, and it's very restrictive. Obviously, this fear is based in disgust and control, or more accurately, a fear of being out of control, and it's very often a subset of hypochondria. Now, these days, I mostly refuse to work with people who have emetophobia because they are just too controlling, and they won't do the ERP that I ask them to do. Therefore, out of respect for myself, I won't waste my time working with somebody who asks for help but won't do what is needed. There is such a control element in this. Common sense says that vomiting is natural. In fact, it's one of nature's most wonderful tools for our survival. And even though vomiting is horrible and nobody likes it, consciously choosing to fight nature doesn't pass any common sense test. Yes, you don't like it. Yes, your amygdala will fire off with a huge warning. Yes, you've learned avoidance behaviors. However, the big thing to point out here is they are often clinging to a story that vomiting is bad, rather than vomiting is life-saving, though briefly uncomfortable and pretty yucky. Now, I'm not trying to belittle anybody here. I know this is tough, okay? But you have to be honest and accountable to yourself. If you refuse to do ERP work, then you are a very controlling person, and this is self-sabotage. A few years back, Jen and I took a trip to go deep into the Peruvian Amazonian rainforest to spend time with some indigenous shamanic healers and to experiment with a medicine called ayahuasca. Now, this plant-based medicine is incredible for finding and releasing trapped traumas from within the body. And I'm going to make a video about this very, very soon. Now, during the event, trapped energies tend to come up out of the body in the form of purges, like vomiting or screaming or shaking. And because most people hate vomiting by themselves, let alone puking up in front of a group, on day one of the retreat, everybody had to go through an initiation ritual of visiting the vomitorium. And yes, it is as horrible as it sounds. We all had to line up one by one, we had to drink pints and pints of salty warm water until our belly was full. And then we had to put our fingers down our throats until we gagged and vomited all that water back up. And this step of the process was compulsory, non-negotiable, and very, very public, as we're doing it all in front of each other. Now, obviously, nobody there wanted to do that task. But one or two people, two or three people, they just absolutely, initially, refused to do it. And they became really, really panicky and really, really distressed. Obviously, these people had emetophobia. But that's not what interested me. What interested me was the smart people just stepped up immediately and said, I'll go first. And they detachedly did what was asked of them. You might say they disconnected from the feelings of the body, they disconnected from the thoughts of the brain into their calm, silent, formless, energetic observer perspective. They were the calm rider of the uncomfortable horse. And in that detached state, being in that detached state was a very, very common sense perspective to step into. Whereas the anxious people were emotionally attaching to their stories and attaching to the fears in their bodies and their emotional responses. I guess my point is, anxiety and OCD generate drama. And when doing drama, we must minimize, and when doing ERP, we must minimize drama. We detach, we become functional, we drop the stories, we unclench the body, yeah? And we focus on our purpose, which is to walk towards our intentions, and we don't run from our fears. This is making sense. So it was a bittersweet balance between disgust and intrigue as we watched people drink all that water until they puked and then had to repeat it a few times. However, after a while, a funny thing happened. It actually became strangely normal, okay? Even funny, with people cheering each other on and supporting each other and even making it playful to see who could puke the quickest or who could throw up the furthest, okay? And because there was 22 of us, okay, it took quite a while to process everybody. And gradually, even those with the biggest resistance calmed down and normalized to that situation and slowly realized that there was no one there to reassure them. In fact, everybody was cheering them on to try something new. And I remember thinking how clever that process was. It was intense ERP, delivered with peer pressure, but also with loving peer support. And it cleverly bonded the group together as it leveled out everybody's egos. And by the end, everybody had participated, even those 3 people with the emetophobia, okay? Even the ones with the biggest phobic responses moved into that energy field, and they did it. And thereafter, nobody felt bad about vomiting. And many people said that they couldn't believe that they'd done it, and that they were proud of themselves to normalize that which previously had been such a profound fear. And what I'm trying to say to you is, we really can break fears very quickly. And the stories we use to support those fears, they can be broken too if we immerse ourselves in them rather than worrying about how to avoid them. We use stepping into life as our best form of ERP, and that is just common sense. And finally, I'd like to remind you that videos 1 to 12 of this course are about understanding anxiety. Videos 13 to 20 are about moving to a more detached perspective, about understanding your personality and separating your thoughts from your emotions. Videos 20 to 30 are about strategies for self-realization, for communication and mental health. Videos from 30 to 40 are the advanced videos where we explore energy, purpose, nature, and becoming a new person. And then the videos in the 40s are how we re-engage with life as this new person. And know this, if change were easy, everybody would be doing it. Therefore, it's probably quite a complex process. And if something is complex, it'll take a lot of study and repetition. And that complexity might be fully understood. Until that complexity can be fully understood, okay, and the new strategies for change installed in the mind and then confirmed into a habit through actions, which is ERP. And I can almost guarantee that if you were to watch 1 video per day, every day, especially from 19 on upwards, right up to the most current video, and then to repeat that loop in full a few times, you will be shocked at what happens as together we reprogram your unconscious mind and install those new strategies. And remember, you can multitask too. You can listen to these recordings as you nod off to sleep, or if you're awake in the night, or you can listen when you're walking or driving or on the bus, yeah? Or you can make sitting with these videos your relaxing meditation of the day. However, as I said earlier, about 70% of people's anxiety will sabotage them from taking this quite simple task. And the degree to which you can consciously overwrite that sabotage with an action rather than procrastination will be the degree that you can escape the clutches of anxiety, OCD, and depression. I guess what I'm saying is, it seems to be human nature to start watching a self-help video, but not human nature to finish it and then to make the time and effort to practically apply all of the techniques. But that will be the difference between those who play the game of life through research and procrastination and those who succeed through taking action and chasing fitness payoffs. And all I'm asking you to consider is, are you knowingly or unknowingly sabotaging your own path to calmness, emotional self-mastery, and life direction? Lots to take in. Please accept this with love, although I'm being a bit in your face, but someone's got to say these things. And I wish you all well on your journey of changing. Okay? As ever, I'd like to thank you for your support, and let's start becoming a person of action. Thank you all very much.